What if I told you that sometimes the most dangerous games are played without a word, without a rulebook, and without either side even realizing they're playing? They're not obvious. They don't look like conflict. Instead, they look like flirtation, like tension, like something you can't quite figure out. And if you're not paying attention, you'll fall for them again and again and again. Because here's the truth: emotional games don't just exhaust you, they silently train you to doubt yourself, to chase proof, to question your own intuition. But there's another way to respond, the Stoic way, a way that doesn't involve arguing, defending, or losing yourself. Because when you understand what's actually happening, you stop playing, you stop performing, you start living from a place of power. So let's talk about the first game, the push and pull. This one is subtle, seductive, and if you've ever felt deeply confused by someone who was into you one day and cold the next, you know exactly what it feels like. She reaches out, opens up, shows interest. And just as you start to feel that connection, that possibility, she pulls back. She becomes distant, short, maybe even ignores you for a while. Then, out of nowhere, she comes back again, warm, engaged, present, and your nervous system is now in a cycle. Anticipation, reward, withdrawal, return. It feels like chemistry, but it's a test, whether she knows it or not. She's checking to see if you're centered or if you'll start to chase, if you'll start to doubt, if your sense of self is strong or shaky. The non-Stoic man reacts. He reaches out more. He worries. He gets obsessed with what went wrong. He assumes it's his fault. He starts to perform, to please, to earn her energy again. And without realizing it, he's nitrogen monoxide longer showing up authentically. He's playing her game. But the Stoic man doesn't react to the pullback. He notices it but doesn't panic. He doesn't start explaining himself or asking for validation. He gives her the freedom to come and go and observes who she becomes in that space. He's not trying to control her, he's just committed to not losing himself. Because here's the secret: most men miss a woman's attention isn't a guarantee. And her distance isn't always personal. Sometimes she's just unsure. Sometimes she's testing subconsciously. Sometimes she wants to see if you can hold your frame without her constantly validating it. And if you can't, you fail the test. Not because you're bad, but because you're not centered. Stoicism teaches this: never base your peace on someone else's presence. The moment you start chasing approval, you give away your authority. And what makes a Stoic man attractive isn't that he's emotionless, it's that he's integrated. He feels, but he's not ruled by the fluctuations of others. He doesn't need to grip tightly, because he's not operating from fear. He knows this: if someone's connection to you is real, it won't need to be chased. It will grow from consistency, not from confusion. And if someone is playing the push and pull, they're not looking for partnership. They're looking for power. And the Stoic man never enters that battle, because he knows that true power doesn't need to be taken. It's something you carry from within. The second game is something every Stoic man encounters at some point. It's called the challenge. And it doesn't always come as an attack. Sometimes it's a playful comment, a subtle dig, a raised eyebrow that says, "Are you really who you say you are?" Sometimes it's a direct question that cuts deeper than it should. "Why do you think that? Is that really your plan? You think that's impressive?" She's not always being cruel if she's feeling out your center. She wants to know if what you project is real, or if you'll start to wobble the moment someone challenges it. And most men, they wobble. They get defensive. They over-explain. They try to prove themselves, to win her over with logic, to control the way she sees them. But here's the Stoic difference: the Stoic man doesn't chase approval through argument. He doesn't defend his every decision like a debater on stage. He listens. He breathes. He stays grounded in who he is, without the need to convince anyone. Because he knows this: if your identity needs to be constantly explained, it's not integrated yet. True mastery doesn't announce itself. It just is. When she challenges you, she's testing for depth, for resilience, for authenticity. And if your energy shifts the moment she questions it, She feels it. If you start chasing her approval instead of standing on your values, she feels it. The Stoic man knows that respect isn't earned through compliance, it's earned through presence. He doesn't need to win the debate. He needs to win his own stillness. Sometimes the most powerful response is nitrogen monoxide response, not as a game but as a reflection of inner peace. Because when you're centered, you don't need to fight to protect your ego. You're not here to perform. You're here to live truthfully. And that calm, quiet certainty is magnetic. It doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from dominating yourself. So when she challenges you next time, ask yourself, am I trying to convince her I'm strong, or am I willing to simply be strong and let her decide for herself? The third game isn't loud. It doesn't arrive in words or challenges. It shows up in what's missing, the text that doesn't come, the call that stops, the presence that fades without explanation. This game is called the silence. It's the most subtle and the most dangerous because it pulls at your deepest insecurities. You start wondering, did I say something wrong? Should I reach out? Should I fix it? And that right there is the invitation to abandon your center and chase certainty, to turn her silence into your chaos. But the Stoic man knows something most never learn: not every silence needs to be filled. Not every void is your responsibility. Sometimes she's pulling back to see what you'll do. Sometimes she's lost interest. Sometimes she's testing if you'll break first. The non-Stoic panics. He fills the gap with messages, excuses, attempts to re-engage. He trades his peace for attention. But the Stoic, he leans into the silence. He lets it be. He lets her come back if she chooses, without chasing, without punishing, without begging. Because he understands that the way someone handles silence speaks louder than what they say when things are easy. And he understands this too, that his worth is not negotiable. He doesn't need to prove he's enough. He simply is. That's what makes him immovable. He knows that stillness isn't a void, it's a mirror. And in that mirror, he can see who she really is. If she respects the connection, she'll return with clarity. If she doesn't, she was never really present. And either way he loses nothing. Because the Stoic never invests in uncertainty. He holds space. But he doesn't bleed for what's not solid. And when she feels that still, grounding presence that doesn't need her to stay, but would welcome her if she chose to, it changes the dynamic. Because he's not seeking control. He's embodying strength. And that strength, that emotional discipline, that ability to remain grounded in the silence, that's what makes him different. That's what makes him Stoic.